What's up, guys? Amsterdam Nose Hoops back today with another video, and today we are discussing the downfall of the Sacramento Kings and why, quite frankly, ever since this offseason, I had a feeling something was going to go wrong, and unfortunately, I was proven correct. Before I get into why, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. We have hit 1,000 subs. I thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me. I never really thought that this was going to happen. 1K alone, and now we're on to bigger and better. So share this with a friend. If you know a Kings fan who's feeling this struggle, share this with them. And let's get right into it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was obviously their biggest addition, Demar Derozan, who's averaging 21, 4, and 4 on 49 from the field, 30 from 3, and 86 from the line. And I think, quite frankly, right, the offense of this team, they're top 8, right? Like when you go on Basketball Reference and you look up the Kings, they're a top 8 offense. The offense is there, right? And DeMar's going to get good shots like these. The issue is DeMar's had a lot of nights where it's a lot of just kind of settling, right? Like, this is a shot he normally makes, but he's off, right? And the lead's just continuing to build against them. And they're 15th in defense, mind you, so they're literal middle of the pack. But now you got Jamal Murray on you, right? Build it up. And just kind of stands there and waits, and again, the lead just continues to tick and build. And the problem is when DeRozan and some of these guys aren't hitting, and especially DeRozan being that third option, right? I mean, he's left wide open for 3. Why is that? Because he can't really shoot them. He shoots 2 a game, by the way, and he's at 30%. So the 3 ball's just not there. And I'm not here to do this to say that DeMar DeRozan specifically is the reason that the Sacramento Kings, I believe, are unfortunately at the point of mediocrity / get ready to retool / blow it up soon, guys. I think ultimately this signing doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, if you had Nikola Jokic, right, the guy playing this team, if you had a Giannis Antetokounmpo, a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right, a Joel Embiid when he's like, if you had a different offensive engine, like a legitimate #1 championship contender engine, I wouldn't be as mad about this move. But you've basically put all your chips in on offense, and you're getting a lot of games from DeRozan but Emster, he's shooting 50% from the field. But that's also because there's a lot of games where the field goals aren't even that high, right? Like, he's averaging only like 15 field goal attempts a game. Some of those games he's not shooting that many, so his percentages aren't going to be impacted as deeply. I think it's a shame, right? Like, when you see actions like this, right, you're trying to run the DeRozan ISO, right, and you get it, but it gets called off, but in the end, it gets fixed, right? So it's an &1. Ultimately, I think what this team does, right, is good. Like, their offense is good. It's still really good. I just think teams have adjusted to the Kings, quite frankly. It's similar to the Pacers, honestly. I've said this before in my Discord especially, and I'm going to leave a link to that so you guys can join it. But this team is, them and the Pacers are linked together, like, not just because of that trade, but because the first year that they really get locked in, right, their offense is all-time historic. It's crazy. We think this team is going to be something crazy for the years to come because they're young and they're just kind of getting things together. Then the league kind of catches on. Right, no longer is the mystery and the appeal and the allure of the Kings something that no one can quite grasp. They figured it out. And ultimately, I just think at the end of the day, right, like, this move is not the move you make. You make a move to try and get an OG Anunoby. You make a move to try and get a Herb Jones. You make a move to try and get a defender. You got to add, because clearly the offense isn't working. Right, it's just not. Some form of legitimate spacing would be helpful. But again, you go for another midi guy, right? Fox at the end of the day is a midi guy. Sabonis is a at the rim player. Like, so many of your best players are within this arc. And I think ultimately, in addition to someone like DeRozan and his skill set, like, it's not a bad skill set. It's just not for this team, right? So then there's going to be a lot of possessions where he has to ISO ball, and as the third option on the team, I just don't think that's the correct move. And you look at the usage rate, I don't think his usage rate should be higher than Sabonis's either. I think at the end of the day, I think things are being misutilized. But there's another player I want to talk about, and I feel really bad because it's a young guy, but we have to talk about Keegan Murray. So Keegan Murray this year is averaging 12, 7, and 1 on 41 from the field, 29 from 3, and the 29 is even worse than like a Demar 30 because it's at least on 2 a game, so it's not hurting that much. This is on like 5 threes a game. He is actively shooting these threes, and it's bricking, and he's 87% from the line. I think this is the second large component. The Kings' big thing was they can build around a trio or a core of Fox and Sabonis, who those two, I think, every year basically of this Kings run have always shown up, right? Have always done their part. And Keegan Murray was that third guy. And I want to shout out a buddy of mine from the Discord, Garp. He pointed this out. When you look at his basketball reference, Keegan Murray, just about every statistical category in terms of field goal percentage, 3-point percent, literally has decreased every single year. Like there was yet to be a year where he statistically improved as an efficiency player, as an efficient player. And I think ultimately the Kings pushed in the chips on Keegan Murray was that guy. You didn't want to go for a Kuzma because of him. You didn't want to go for certain players because you believed in Keegan Murray. And unfortunately, at the moment, it's looking like they made the wrong decision. So, all right, let's just get a look. So Murray here does great, right? Gets to the rim. Beautiful job. No doubt about it, right? I think, though, at the same time, you're going to get a lot of shots like this, right? So Murray's trying to here sink off. Wide open 3. Can't hit. Okay, it's a one-off, right? That can't be that bad. Keegan Murray goes into the lane. Beautiful. Maybe the idea is Keegan Murray should shoot less. Maybe ultimately, right, he's been taking less threes and somehow even the field goal percentage. This is like when you look at this, why is this a shot you're shooting? Like you're from deep out. I get it. He hits this, right? But that's a tough shot. And I don't think he's quite good enough to be that tough shot maker. I don't think Keegan Murray's a bad basketball player. I don't think he's a bum. I'm not saying any of those things. But what I am saying is, right, you get an action like this and you're left open, you got to hit. And again, I think when he's consistently missed over and over and over for this team, and again, their bets are all hedged on offense. You can't, this is just bad. Frankly, this is bad. But again, look at how shrunk the court is. Fox isn't that great of a shooter. Malik Monk's a good shooter, right? So they got to respect Malik Monk. But at that point, it's just Alex Len. He can't shoot. De'Aaron can shoot a little bit, but not great. I think what we are seeing here is that Keegan Murray's ultimately, they bet on the wrong guy. I don't mean to be harsh, but when you fire someone like Mike Brown, who, mind you, got an extension in the summer, won a unanimous Coach of the Year just 2 years ago, he, as a coach, right, it's weird because as a coach, you're always going to get the blame or the credit or whatever. At what point, though, okay, you hedge all the bets on offense. Mike Brown basically said, okay, so I'll focus on our offense. And their defense technically has gotten better. I think just about every single year they've been since that first year, right, where they were like bottom of the league basically in defense, but number 1 on offense. There's only so much I feel like you could do as a coach, right? Because he's talked about trying to empower Keegan Murray. But at some point, maybe that's why. I think that was a very old DeMarcus Cousins Sacramento Kings move to make, though. Firing him 30 games into the season, I think was ridiculous, quite frankly. I don't think it's coaching that is holding this team back. This has been their identity, and unfortunately, their front office empowered this identity. Their front office put their money and their bet on Keegan Murray. And they, again, instead of trying to get maybe a 3-and-D wing, trying to get even a Dorian Finney-Smith, considering you look at the package the Lakers got for Dorian Finney-Smith, it was damn near nothing. You could put that together, right? Like, instead, though, you try to get DeMar DeRozan and be like, we're just going to outscore everybody. But it's not working. I think ultimately, right, Keegan Murray's an embodiment of this front office of they've placed their bets on the wrong things, and it's only come back to hurt/haunt them, right? I think Keegan Murray's a good player. I just don't think at this point he's what the Kings need. And he's at his best when he attacks the rim, but his field goal percentage still isn't that great. So at what point do you continue to bet on this guy? And then I have two final players we're going to talk about. Now, I think they've been basically the cornerstones of this run, this dynamic, whatever you want to say. It's De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis, who, by the way, is coming off an All-NBA season. 21, 14, and 6 on 59 from the field, 42 from 3 on about 2 a game. Again, I've talked about it before. That the unfortunate thing about Sabonis is that three-point shooting is fake, right? I'm not saying he's a terrible shooter, but you're going to leave him open, and when you really need him to make those kinds of shots, it won't hit. And then 78 from the line. Right? I think Sabonis, I don't understand a few things, right? Like, why did DeRozan get more usage than Sabonis? Why are some of the, like, Sabonis with the ball in his hands, I think I think Fox is probably the best player on the Kings, but him and Sabonis are a great 1A, 1B. I really believe that. And they're at their best when they can empower each other. And they can only do that when one of those two have the ball, right? Like, even if it's not for that long, just to set up your hub, right? Like, again, the push and transition. Make guys like Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, their jobs easier. Even DeMar. But again, they bet their hedge and they hedged their bet on a guy like DeMar. And because they did that, now you've shrunk the floor, right? Now there's even less people to worry about on the three-point line, to fight at the perimeter. Because again, I can shrink on you. I don't need to worry about most of these players to attack, right? I think, again, this Kings team is falling apart at the seams, especially when you have an all-NBA caliber player in Domantas Sabonis. I don't quite remember De'Aaron Fox made an all-NBA team, but even then, all-star caliber, right? Like you have 2 all-star caliber players easily on this team. 3 even, if you include DeMar, right? Because you traded for DeMar. I think at the end of the day, Sabonis is doing what he can do. I just think he needs the ball more. I don't think he needs to be Jokic per se, but I think ultimately they have strayed away, I think, from their identity a little bit, and they've gone more ISO heavy. Now, some of it makes sense, right? Like when you had the games where Fox dropped like 63, and I think there was only Keegan Murray at that point. There was no DeRozan, there's no Sabonis. Obviously, you got to do what you got to do, right? But when the 3 of them are there, I don't think DeRozan should be having nearly as many ISO touches. I don't. I think Fox can have his, and I think Sabonis should not necessarily have ISO, but it should be his ball to distribute. And I think at the end of the day, this Kings team now is stuck in mediocrity, basically, because they'll never be good enough to win a championship, but they'll never be bad enough to, get Cooper Flagg or Victor Wembanyama or even Alex. They'll never be bad enough for that right now. So at what point do we look at the ownership? Because if we're firing a coach 30 games into the year, mind you, again, he's done his part. There's only so much he can do, right? Now, if they were just terrible, because what's interesting is, too, well, the Kings got worse from the year they made the 3 seed. They lost, I think 2 more games or 3 more games. You're telling me a 3-game difference. And I believe another 1 to 2 game difference from that. So 5 games total from when you made the 3 seed. And then they go on a 6-game skid. That gets Mike Brown fired. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's quite frankly absurd. And then the final thing I want to talk about is De'Aaron Fox. Now, De'Aaron Fox had a very odd interview. And if you guys know what I mean, there's an interview post Mike Brown's firing. And he's like, I don't really feel guilty or feel bad for him. He's still getting a check. And now there's basically the thought of, did De'Aaron Fox kind of nudge the front office to go, get rid of this dude? And the front office did it not just because basically De'Aaron's been basically threatening to want to leave. He doesn't want to resign there, right? He doesn't want to be there, which I have technically no issue with that, right? You're a player, you have every right to do whatever you want to do, right? And he's still giving his effort, unlike a certain player in Miami at the moment. he's giving his damnedest to this team. Like, it's undeniable. Like, De'Aaron Fox is not like selling it in or throwing it in, but he does have a turnover problem. And I think seeing his frustrations at times, him as a bonus on the court are doing all they can do, but their flaws are still a part of the issue, right? Sabonis' defense is still not good. Sabonis' defense is still a big reason that they hurt at times, having a 5 that's not that good at defense. And again, they hedge their bets on offensive players when half of their 4 big guys that they tried to bet on aren't really producing. At some point, maybe the whole offense thing where you don't have a great, all-time great player leading it does not work. Maybe that's the idea, right? But instead, for whatever reason, you see Mike Brown as the reason to get the out. And again, I think this Kings team has problems. Like, you get Fox's turnovers, right? You see him trying to set it up. Can't even keep the ball, right? And I know I'm not using as much film as I normally do, but this is something I needed to talk about, right? Like, some of these, just look at some of the, right? Like, some of these plays, right? You then get Fox in the curl. Tries to sell the flop. Now you're down 6, mind you. So now you got a transition bucket incoming, right? You're down 3. Lose the ball. You're kind of just on the skateboard, right? You don't really have control or balance. Now you're down 6, right? And again, this is a bad errant pass. Now DeRozan's kicking the ball up and out, and then he's losing it. And again, I think Fox at times gets his head down a little too much, and he just loses sight of the ball. I think when you look at the film and when you watch this team, on paper, yes, it's the same idea, right? Like, you're still going to see Sabonis run DHOs. You're still going to see them try and operate out the mid post and them running curls for Fox or DeRozan. And ultimately, this is why you don't hedge all your bets on offense. Unless you have a Nikola Jokic, a Giannis Antetokounmpo, a Luka Doncic, a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you can't do it. I'm sorry. You can't. And you can't be too afraid to move off a young player if it means you could get someone you know what their quality will be, right? Keegan Murray has technically on a paper thing, right? Like, the points have gone up, but the efficiency's regressed. I think ultimately this Sacramento Kings team look at Mike Brown, and they were on a 6-game losing streak. They scapegoated him, basically. And frankly, the front office is more to blame than him. They went all in on offense because of 1 year and tried to just hammer that home, and it hasn't worked. But let me know what you guys think down below. What do you think the reason is that this Kings team is struggling? Do you think they'll bounce back? Do you agree or disagree with my assessment? As always, guys, this was Hoops. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Have a beautiful rest of your day, guys. Peace out.